On November 11th, I released No Monsters, a dystopian animated short film and sequel to my last film Being Pretty. This video will cover my creative process, the themes, ideas, and especially the art behind these short films. I had a lot of different ideas for sequels to Being Pretty. Even in my original sketchbook, there were so many little ideas and stories that I never really got around to showcasing, not in that one video. One idea I had centred around the life cycle of a handyman, paralleling that with the life cycle of one of the citizens. The idea was to tell two stories, both exactly the same, just from different perspectives. One fanciful and fake, and the other horrific and real. One of the strongest images I came up with for this idea, I eventually turned into a sculpture. And another idea I had was of a boy having nightmares, being told a bedtime story by his mother. But the story is pure brainwashing propaganda and the boy is right to be scared. In the end, I decided to mesh these two ideas into one. It's the story of a child who is scared of monsters and has read a bedtime story. The short tells two stories, both exactly the same, just one fake and the other real. The story is of a boy. Yes, this is a boy. A lot of people think it's a girl. In fact, it's the same boy from Being Pretty. It's the same model, just updated. It's the same mum, it's the same house, the same family. Anyway, the boy is exceptional, and he is scared of monsters. He is told a bedtime story by his mother to calm his nerves. The story is told as of the exceptional girl, who is also scared of monsters. The exceptional girl is outside of town. She is confronted by a monster and is pursued. She eventually makes it back to town where the monster disappears at the first sight of the handymen. She is safe. Moral: monsters do exist, but not here. Stay in Autodale and you'll be safe. This is false, for we are then shown the exact same story, but at the heart of town. The monster replaced with a handyman and with no saviour. The exceptional woman, with matching beauty spots, is caught and assimilated. This is exactly what will happen to the exceptional boy, and he is very right to be scared. This short follows a very similar formula to the first. A narrator telling a story to children, that story being pure brainwashing propaganda, then hard cut to the dark reality of the world. The same story in a different light. And a scary cyborg lady to top it all off. This was deliberate. I wanted my sequel to have a very similar feel, only build upon the lore a little more. I prefer this story to the first though, I think it has more meat to it. Where Being Pretty is a very broad, impersonal PSA and propaganda piece with a very simple, focused message. No Monsters is a more personal story, drenched in world building with fun, unanswered mysteries and a very satisfying exclamation mark at the end. Art is always fun. The art is my favourite part of these. I honestly think this short has some of the best images I've ever put to animation. This short was split up into 3 parts, just like Being Pretty. The boys' bedroom stuff, the cartoon stuff, and the dark robotic stuff. All were very different to work on. Starting with the boys' bedroom stuff, it was relatively straightforward. The entire scene takes place in the boys' bedroom. The whole of the section is composed of just 5 different angles, I think. This meant I only had to paint 5 backdrops, slightly varying from shot to shot but not much, which is one of the reasons I decided to put so much detail into his bedroom. From the clock in which the hands do move as the shot goes on, to the rocket decals on the wall, to the outdated dinosaur toys, to the giant penis castle in the distance. The cartoon stuff I tackled very late into the making of this short, which I kinda wish I didn't. I drew every single one of these pictures in a day, about 5 days before the short was released. I released the teaser before I'd even started this stuff. I coloured them the next day and I animated and rendered the next. I wouldn't necessarily call them rushed, but I just know that I would have changed some things if I gave myself more time. That being said, I do still really like the style. It's supposed to be a mix of old storybook illustration and retro cartoons. The look I had for the exceptional girl was originally very similar to Six from Little Nightmares. She originally wore a yellow raincoat, but I decided against it considering the whole short is monotone and it would have been distracting. But a lot of the drawings I did of her early on still have that yellow coat. The cartoon Handymen return, looking very similar to their original cartoon design from Being Pretty. I really do like the contrast between the hyper-stylized, jolly depiction of these robots and the soulless reality of their true design. Honestly, I think it reflects the whole idea behind these 2 shorts. As for the monster, a lot of you know this, but Being Pretty and by extension No Monsters was originally based on this picture I painted. It features a little girl offering a monster a piece of birthday cake. This can be seen in two ways. Either only in the innocent eyes of a child can a monster in an alley be seen as an equal, that or this is an example of the horrors of innocence. For this is a dangerous monster, which will likely kill her because she has approached it. These themes, the idea of two different perspectives on the same story, I carried over into No Monsters. I took a lot of influence from this image for the sequel. The monster featured in the storybook is the same monster, just in a different style. Originally, in my sketches and doodles, I had the monster be a large wolf or bear. Very generic, further cementing the obvious Red Riding Hood influence. But I'm very glad I decided on this design. It fits the world so much better, it also calls back to the roots of it all, and who knows? Maybe Autodale aren't lying, maybe these particular monsters do actually exist outside their walls. Just looking a lot less like this and a whole lot more like this. Now to the meat of it, the dark robotic stuff. This whole section, the exceptional woman being chased, caught and assimilated, was the toughest part, understandably. I've always preferred telling stories through imagery over action, but man, there was a lot of action in this part, which meant a lot of animating. A lot of running, sliding, falling and jumping. It took a long time. A very obvious influence for this section was Nazi Germany, but one of my main artistic influences for the heart of Autodale, the giant penis castle, was H.R. Geiger. This is why the tower looks so much like a panini. His work is phallic and horrid and beautiful, and I absolutely love it. I own a lot of figures and statues of his xenomorph design, and a lot of my art is inspired by his stuff too. My favourite being this life-size facehugger sculpture I made, which by the way I made a video of. It's in the description. Shameless plug. Nearly everything in the heart of Autodale is influenced by his work in some way. The matriarch from Being Pretty specifically is heavily based on his stuff, who, by the way, does make an appearance. She's in the background of the hive mind. The imagery of this scene I think is some of the best I've ever created. I love the way the uglies in the distance look like phantoms, drifting soullessly and empty. I love the way the shots in this scene parallel the images of the storybook. I love this image here, of the exceptional woman at the mercy of the monster being looked down upon by all the authoritative handymen, who do nothing to help her as she's judged by the uglies, whose pointing, by the way, follows her as she runs. But my favourite image is of the assimilated exceptional woman. I was originally going to base her design off of this painting I did. This painting is literally called Assimilation, but I decided it didn't really fit the art of the rest of the world. Instead, I drew up this quick illustration, the bland expression, the face crusted, mimicking the infamous masks of Autodale, hooked into the machine. I really do like the final design I decided upon. The art style is still the same as all my other recent shorts. It's still the same 3D cel-shaded character models in a world composed of 2D transparent planes. When the camera moves, the illusion is completely destroyed. But this time I really pushed it to its limits. I had to learn some really weird techniques to achieve some of these images. I moved the camera more than I ever thought possible in shots like this. I also utilised a lot more focus and blur techniques throughout the entire shot. One really good example of the weird new techniques I had to take advantage of can be seen in this shot. You can see the 2D backdrop, then the 3D son lying on the bed, then the 2D covers and pillow, and then the 3D mother sitting on the bed. It's kind of complicated to explain why, but it was very tricky to achieve this shot. In the end, I needed to use forced perspective. If I move the camera, you can see that I had to shrink the mother down to achieve this layering technique, though in the finished composition, everything looks fine. And if you think that's complicated, in the next shot she touches him, shadow and all, I don't even want to start on how much of a nightmare that was. I really did try to cram as much detail and interesting imagery into the shot as I could. The backdrops specifically are far more detailed than they were before. Seriously, the smallest details, my favourite being the dinosaurs in the boys' room. This is actually a reference to my own personal Papo dinosaur collection, but the detail I really like about this is that they're purposefully really dated designs. Because aesthetically this world is supposed to be a reflection in 1950s, so I made sure that their dinosaurs look like big scaly kangaroos. Just big, plodding, terrible lizards. This short also featured my first hybrid. When the exceptional woman is assimilated into the hive mind, she is actually created using a combination of 2D and 3D. Her face and organs are 3D cel-shaded animated models, and her neck, hair and cables are 2D. I think it worked beautifully, and it's easily my favourite image from the short. The term ugly has never meant unattractive in this world. The term pretty never meant attractive, and the term exceptional doesn't mean beautiful. In metaphor, you can make of these phrases whatever you want. I encourage that, of course. But in the story, I covered this in my last making of, but the society of Autodale is an artificial intelligence's idea of the perfect human society. It's based on the very flawed American dream, 1950s suburban America. A father hardworking, providing for his family, a mother cooking and cleaning, taking care of the kids, and the kids wide-eyed and brainwashed into replacing their parents when they become old enough. This is a world lacking of individualism, art, and expression. Everyone wears the same face. A never-ending cycle, cogs in a machine. Ugly people are the people who do not fit into their roles, people who are too individual, or odd, or broken, as a machine may say, not necessarily ugly. Pretty people are the compliant ones, the ones that work, the cogs in the machine. Those who do fit their roles, never questioning and never disobeying. Not necessarily attractive. And the exceptional, well, we'll get to that later. When creating this short, trying to come up with a sequel to Being Pretty, I had this idea in the back of my head. Autodale's system is objectively flawed. It only works if everyone obeys. Autodale needs all of its citizens to stay brainwashed and to be blindly compliant. Of course, they make a lot of effort to maintain this perfect running society. They brainwash everyone into fitting into their roles, becoming mindless and compliant. Anyone who shows a shred of individualism is killed, the uglies. But the uglies don't necessarily see through the system. In fact, they still believe in it. I made a point of that. A whole row of them rat out the exceptional women, further strengthening the system as a result. The uglies were never people who didn't believe in the way Autodale works. They were people who were different and didn't fit. But what of the people who truly do see through the system? That was the idea that drove this short. Where the objectively detrimental members of society, the uglies, are eliminated, those who are objectively exceptional, the smartest, most creative, most gifted people pose the largest threat to this world. Those who can really see things from another perspective and challenge what they're told. These are the people who could realise the flaws in the system. Those who are truly brilliant could perhaps see through the brainwashing and propaganda and even perhaps start some kind of revolution. This is why the exceptional boy in the short cannot sleep. He's smart. He knows something's wrong. The system is sick. He knows this. And he is scared of the monsters that will inevitably come for him because of it. Autodale's perfect system works because they categorize human beings. The ugly are eliminated, the exceptional are assimilated, and the pretty churn on. Every single little thing ever furthering the system. An endless machine. A society of human beings who are not human anymore. Thank you so much for watching this, really. It's amazing that so many people care about what I have to say and what I make, especially with these last few videos. And special thanks to all the fans who sent in auditions. I got so much more than I thought I would. I couldn't possibly listen to or reply to them all. I got hundreds. I really hope this little thank you is good enough. The amount of support and enthusiasm was amazing. Bye.